Good evening, everyone. Time for another silver update. This is the silver chart relative to the Dow Jones Industrial Average provided by netdania.com. You can click on the link below. Now we can see on the shutdown news, I'm going to go to the silver chart in a second here, but I wanted to show you the overlay here. We had a massive sell-off in silver. We can see that silver was actually performing better than the Dow until this morning. We get silver down 5% on the shutdown news with the stock market starting to rally. So you can look at it here in real time. We'll go to the 5-minute here. So you can see the massive volume of the silver manipulators coming in on the government shutdown news. Now, you tell me, what does the price of silver have to do with the government shutting down? Well, of course, nothing. But that's how they operate. That's their signature. And that is the way you know that you are fighting against government manipulators who manipulate the price of markets. And we're going to talk about that when we look at user questions. But that's how you know you're on the right side of the trade. As Jimmy Rogers has said in the past, the way you trade government intervention is you wait for the rally and you go the other way. Now, this is not just your normal currency manipulation that governments do or your short-term thing. This is a very, very long-term 100, 200-year manipulation, governments against precious metals. So if you're on the other side of the government, ultimately you're going to win because markets are more powerful than governments. So, but let's get to the user questions, and then we're going to get to the shutdown news. This is a fascinating battle that's going on. Before I get to the user questions, I just wanted to remind you that I have warned people for years now that you do not want to be dependent on these people. The communists have a term that they use. It's called useful idiots. And useful idiots are people that are used to gain power, but as soon as dictatorial or complete power is taken, those people are thrown overboard. So those are the people that are dependent upon the government for their sustenance. Those people ultimately will be thrown overboard, and we'll see that when we look at the USDA website being shut down. But before we do that, let's go to some user questions. This is from Miojo. How much is silver worth? Hey, Brother Jay, I noticed that your silver in the Bible videos have come to a standstill. Well, actually, I did the first one. I'm going to do a number of follow-ups on that. I just haven't gotten around to that, but they're definitely coming. I do have one question about the silver correction. Who is the altruistic and economically sound entity that is going to manage the silver price that will be used to determine the trade value of silver here and throughout the world? The market does not seem to be cutting it right now. Well, there's a number of assumptions there. The first assumption is that we have a market. And as I pointed out for the longest time, we don't have a market. If we had a market, we would have people who want to buy silver and people who want to sell silver coming to a price agreement. That's not what we have. We have government-sanctioned manipulators going in and selling fake silver to suppress the price of the real thing. So that's the first false assumption in this question. The other one is that you need some type of altruistic or economically sound entity to manage markets. You don't need that. Ultimately, markets will manage themselves. Now, we're in a long battle here for the market to emerge. Ultimately, the free market will emerge. Silver will be repriced at a much, much higher level. It happened in the 1930s with gold and silver. It happened in the 1970s. It's going to happen again. So the market is going to do it by itself. We don't need anybody to protect the market. We just need to have people stop interfering in the market. Now, the next question is from Cointro, and this is a fairly long article here, but I'm going to go through it real quick because these are very good misconceptions and lies that we see. Hi there, Brother John F. If you haven't gotten enough material to do a hit piece on the Fed from the previous 2 posts, then here's some more for you, lol. And it's a link to the Huffington Post, which is a year-old article, but it's very, very good because we're right in the midst of, again, massive government propaganda, as we'll see in a bit here. But let's go to this Huffington Post article. Now, if you're a faithful reader of the Huffington Post, then I think most of the viewers know that you're pretty much brain dead. And, if you believe what's on the Huffington Post, then there's not much I can do to help you. But let's go into these supposed myths about the Federal Reserve. Now, myth number 1, the Fed actually prints money. People commonly say that the Fed itself prints money. It's true that the Fed is in charge of the money supply, but technically the Treasury Department prints money on the Fed's behalf. Asking the Treasury Department to print cash isn't even necessary for the Fed to buy securities. So I'm not going to go to the links or try to refute this point by point, but just take you to point 2. Remember, this one is the Fed actually prints money. That's not true. And we go into number 2 myth, the Federal Reserve is spending money wastefully. Both CNN anchor Aaron Burnett, Republican vice presidential nominee Paul Ryan have compared the Federal Reserve's quantitative easing to government spending. But the Federal Reserve actually has created new money by expanding its balance sheet. So in 1, they refute the fact that the Fed prints money, and in 2, they say the Fed has created new money. So you tell me, these people are nuts. So number 3, the Fed is causing hyperinflation. Some conservatives have claimed that the Federal Reserve is causing hyperinflation, but inflation is actually at historically low levels, and there is no sign that is going to change. Core prices have risen just 1.4% over the past year, according to the Labor Department below. So I don't even need to comment about that. Number 4, the amount of cash available has grown tremendously. Some Federal Reserve critics claim that the Fed has devalued the U.S. dollar through a massive expansion of the amount of currency in circulation. But not only is inflation low, currency growth has also not really changed since the Fed started its stimulus measures, as noted by Business Insider's Joe Wiesenthal. So we have another paid propaganda, paid economist. But of course, we know that it's not a matter of currency. We're talking about digits now, and they're digits in computers. So the amount of currency is completely irrelevant. The money supply is these digits, whether they're bank digits or whether they're credit digits. So that's an irrelevant argument. Number 5, the gold standard would make prices more stable. Representative Ron Paul has claimed that bringing back the gold standard would make prices more stable, but prices actually were much less stable under the gold standard than they are today, as the Atlantic's Matthew O'Brien and Business Insider's Joe Wiesenthal have noted. So obviously a couple of bogus articles. Now, if you remember, the United States was not on a gold standard. It was on a gold and silver standard. It wasn't until the crime of 1873, the demonetization of silver, that we had that horrific depression. The 19th century was actually a period of the greatest growth in the history of this country. So more lies from the left. Myth, the Fed is causing food and gas prices to rise. CNN anchor Aaron Burnett claimed in September that the Federal Reserve stimulus measures have caused food and gas prices to rise, but many economists believe global supply and demand issues are influencing these prices, not Fed policy. And there's actually no correlation between the Fed stimulus measures and commodity prices, according to some economists, Paul Krugman and Dean Baker. So I really don't have to say much more about that. I think you all probably shop at the grocery store and have gone to the gas station. Myth, quantitative easing has not helped job growth. Some Federal Reserve critics claim the Fed's stimulus measures have destroyed jobs, but the Fed's quantitative easing measures have actually saved or created There's your key phrase, saved or created. So you know that's just a bunch of nonsense. There's no way to calculate that. According to the Fed's economists, so the Fed, according to the Fed's economists, waste of time. Number 8, tying the U.S. dollar to commodities would solve everything. Representative Paul Ryan has proposed tying the value of the U.S. dollar to a basket of commodities in an aim to promote price stability, but this actually would cause prices to be much less stable and hurt the U.S. economy, as another paid government shill economist has stated. Number 9, ending the Fed would make the financial system more stable. Representative Ron Paul claims that ending the Federal Reserve and returning to the gold standard would make the U.S. financial system more stable, but the U.S. economy actually experienced longer and more frequent financial crises and recessions during the 19th century when the U.S. was using the gold standard and did not have the Fed. Again, same argument. We're not talking about a gold standard. We're talking about the constitutional standard currency, which was abandoned with the crime of 1873. You'll find that if you look before that, they were not longer. They were quick resets of the system. So again, another lie. Number 10, the Fed can't do anything else to help job growth. Many commentators have claimed that there simply aren't any tools left in the Fed's toolkit to be able to help job growth, but some economists have noted that the Fed could target a higher inflation rate to stimulate job growth. The Fed, however, has ruled this option out for now. So how does a higher inflation rate increase job growth? We don't know. And number 11, the Fed can't easily unwind all of the stimulus. Some commentators have claimed that the Fed can't safely unwind its quantitative easing measures, but the Fed's program involves buying some of the most heavily traded and owned securities in the world. So they're saying, well, these are very, very trusted and valuable. That's interesting. Then why is the Fed having to buy them? Treasury and government mortgage-backed bonds. The Fed will likely have little problem finding buyers for these securities. Yeah, you can't make this stuff up, people. All of which will eventually expire, even if the Fed does nothing. But economists have noted that once the Fed decides it's time to unwind, etc. So we know with the recent back off of tapering that the Fed's bluff was called. So great questions, of course. The Huffington Post did the best they could, I suppose, but really, honestly, a pathetic joke trying to defend the Federal Reserve. So let's look at this shutdown news that's going on now. It's absolutely fascinating. The Obamacare went live. Now, I don't know if this is true, that the website for Obamacare, of course, this is up. It's being reported by Hannity and others that the bill that was given over to the Senate simply mandated that the American people be given the same rights as the Congress, so they tried to opt the Congress in to the health care bill and also level of playing field between businesses and the American people. I don't know if that's true or not. I'll have to wait for people to investigate that claim. But if we look, we can see this healthcare.gov site is up. So it's the first day of jumping in and registering for Obamacare. And of course, we know anecdotally the reports are that the site doesn't work. We know the president came out and tried to defend it and compared the government to Apple Computer. Maybe he should have chosen Microsoft. But we also have all these websites that are down. We have the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, shut down information. As a result of temporary government shutdown, the DIA website is not being updated at this time. The link below provides the latest information on the furlough. Additional questions related to the shutdown should be directed to the DIA Office of Human Resources, and then give you this. So this website for the Defense Intelligence Agency is up, but it's telling you it's not going to be updated. Now, a little bit more severe is going to be the NOAA. You can see here, you've just got this massive redirect here to a web page of just now it's blank. Due to federal government shutdown, NOAA.gov and most associated websites are unavailable. Only websites necessary to protect lives and property will be maintained. See weather.gov, see USA.gov, etc. So, little more extreme with the NOAA. And then, of course, the big one that I covered on the blog today is the USDA.gov with the announcement, due to the lapse in federal government's funding, this website is not available. After funding has been restored, please allow some time for this website to become available again. For more information about available government services, etc. So this is absolutely laughable. Any of you who run websites know that you actually had to create a new page to create this. So it was actually more work to create the down page than it is to just leave the site up. Now, people may say, well, but that doesn't include the bandwidth that's being used and used up on the website. Of course, that would assume that they're paying their ISP bandwidth by the day, which is absolutely ridiculous, absurd, ludicrous. And also that they don't have free bandwidth. I can't imagine that they don't if they're not a tier 1 provider. For those of you who are into networking, know what that is. But I don't know. Perhaps they do have a bill that they pay for their bandwidth. But still, it's completely absurd that we would get this. But even more important than that is the fact that this is the USDA. Now, you know that the USDA is the government agency that is in charge of SNAP. So the big question is, are they going to shut down the SNAP payments? Will they shut down the food stamp cards? And I read another article, I don't have it here, but the indication from that article was they have a year's worth of money to fund those SNAP benefits. But clearly the attempt to scare people about this is here. It's absolutely hilarious to see the government try to do these things. This is the type of thing, if you've seen when you've watched local government debates on bond issues and things like that, they always try to threaten to shut down the things that impact people the most. They try to blackmail people with tax increases by threatening the things. You'll always hear it on the local scale. Well, we're going to have to shut down police and fire. So that's the first thing they always talk about cutting to get that reaction. Of course, we know that the people behind all of this want to grow the government. They don't want to cut the government. So they're trying to scare people. And as I said before, you want to be going the other way. Now, it's fascinating that the Obamacare website, which doesn't work, is up. But this isn't the first time we've seen this sort of thing. If you remember back in 2011, of July of that year, when we had the same issue come up, Obama says he cannot guarantee Social Security checks will go out in August. So we had that same thing happen. Now, think about this. Social Security is supposedly, and there are a lot of government officials who have referred to a Social Security trust fund. So it's already supposed to be a trust fund that can't be depleted or won't be depleted for another 30 years out, etc. So supposedly there's all of this money that's dedicated to Social Security. And then also you have these payments that are coming in. Just based upon the payments that are coming in, there's still more money coming in every day being withheld from the checks of current workers than is actually going out to current retirees. So this is a double lie here. Not only are they saying there isn't a trust fund, which there really isn't, so they're kind of admitting the truth there, but they're also saying that, well, we're not getting any money from checks, so we don't have any money. Well, then I would say to that, my reply would be, good, I'm glad. Since you can't send out any Social Security money, to the retirees, then I will expect that you will not be deducting any Social Security money from my check until you get this problem resolved. Well, good luck with that. So, a great sideshow that we have going on, and the fact that this is a big deal is right there in the silver market. I covered many times before the fact that the silver market is the absolute key to all of these government shenanigans. We had the Bear Stearns top, that's right here. That marked the beginning of the financial crisis. We had the May smackdown that coincided with the Obama birth certificate release and the capture and kill of Osama bin Laden. That was on that exact date. And then, of course, this year we had the incredible April 15th, Tax Day, Boston Marathon Massacre, false flag, whatever you want to call it. So silver is right dead center in the middle of all of these issues. They know that it is their Achilles heel. That's why they have to smack it down. Ultimately, they want to have you as dependent as they possibly can. They want you to be a useful idiot. You're only useful in collapsing the system. Of course, once they've collapsed the system, they plan to throw you overboard. So it's best to protect yourself with real assets, physical silver being the best. And at some point, they're going to collapse this game. And we'll talk to you next time.